Welcome. This one is the third in the webinar spring series for business, the complete Vevox experience, live polling, thinking outside the box to maximize insights. So thinking of different ways that how you can actually use polling within your meetings and events. A few of the things that we're going to be discussing today you might have already seen, but I'm hoping everyone can learn a little bit about today and got loads of content to go through. Before we get started, we normally include this right at the end, but if there's anything that I can recommend enough, it's going onto our YouTube channel and subscribing onto there. So this webinar today is going to be live on the YouTube channel in a couple of days' time once that's been published. And we've got loads and loads of really useful content on there. I think over 100 videos of help, tips, articles, webinars. So really, really do recommend if you do anything today, is go on our YouTube channel and subscribe on there. Also go on our LinkedIn and follow us on there to stay up to date with everything Vevox. We are the customer success team here at Vevox. So it's Lewis and Lewis, funnily enough, spelt differently, but I'm known internally as LT2 because I was the second person to join. We're also joined by Enya as well, and Charlie is, I believe she's on annual leave at the moment, isn't she, guys? What's she up to? Can you remember?
Yeah, she's it's half term. She's looking after the Rugrats. She's I'm sure they're keeping her very busy.
Kids keeping her very busy, I'm sure. I'm very sure. Perfect. So the agenda for today, try to keep it really nice and simple for everyone. First, we're going to be talking about some statistics for productive meetings and unproductive meetings as well. So stats don't lie, and we're going to be diving into that a little bit in a moment's time. Then we're going to be talking about why you should be using polling within your meetings and events and why that's so vital and key for engagement. We're going to touch upon Bob's case study. So it's a case study that we've been following throughout the previous two webinars in this series as well. And we're just going to refamiliarize ourselves with Bob, how he's planning on, what he's planning on doing in the future and how Vevox can help him. Then we're going to go on to thinking outside the box with polling. So all of those different polling tips and scenarios and things, that's how you can use us and how Bob can actually go forward and use this and really drive his engagement in his events that he's planning. Finally, at the end, we're going to stay on for a Q&A. So if you have any kind of burning questions for us, just go into Vevox now and ask some questions on there, and we'll be addressing them all at the end of today's session. Perfect. So let's get cracking. Let's get started. Stats do not lie, and there's some really good statistics here from a company called Otter Statistics. So they don't really lie, do they, Enya? Let's talk about this a little bit.
No, absolutely not. And there's some really staggering numbers here. The one I really want to focus on is that $58 billion, 58 billion with a B dollars in the UK are wasted on unproductive, unorganized meetings. You think we've all sat through them. There's always been a meeting that you think the host hasn't prepared for this. You know, there's no follow-up tasks, nothing's going in. You're just boring me with your PowerPoint presentation. There's too much information and not enough is being retained. The $58 billion, that's an absurdly high number. You've got the 5 stats on the right over there as well as like the 5 main problem areas. No follow-up tasks, no accountability after the session, lack of participation preparation, time allocated not being observed, overrunning your session, etc. like that. It's just some really staggering figures there.
Yep, sure. And that's a really key point. I mean, unproductive meetings can be very wasteful. And today we're going to be talking about how you can help that ideally. So why use polling? Lewis, let's speak about why people should use polling and why it's so important within your meetings and your events going forward.
I think the main reason is to get your audience engaged. The whole point of asking your questions is to get your audience participating in your session, getting them listening to what you're actually talking about, getting them to focus on your session. Because we've all been into those sessions, like Enya was talking, we've all been in those meetings where you end up just getting talked at. And so you start looking at emails, you start looking at Teams messages, you start responding to queries, and you're not focusing on the content that's being given. And so by using the various elements, Q&A as well as polling, you're breaking what we call the meeting attentiveness curve, and you're maintaining that interest from your audience, maintaining their attention. the whole point of the polling side of it is to increase that learning potential, gather more data and insightful data. You're not just polling for the sake of polling. You're not just doing it to get that interaction. You want to gain something from it as well. But all of those together will make your meeting more fun. All the various elements will make your meeting a more enjoyable experience, and it means that your participants will they will actively be more engaged in the next session that you do as well.
Sure. I think that's a really key point, everything on this slide, and those 4 first bullet points really do come together and make your meetings and your events more fun overall. And that's the kind of main thing, really, to make them more engaging, more fun, getting people involved with the use of that interactive polling. So really kind of key points there to take away. Moving on to Bob's case study, and this is something that we've spoken about in the 2 previous webinars that we've done in this series as well. So we're kind of following this along, and today we're going to be, familiarising back with what Bob's doing and his case study, and how he's going to be, how polling is going to help him going forward. So let's talk a little bit about that, if that's okay, Anya.
Yeah, absolutely. So Bob Freeman, he's the MD at a tech company. He's got his FY22 meeting coming up for the kickoff. He's got a lot of presenters in this meeting, a lot of information he needs to get across. It was also announced in the last quarter that they're going to be merging with a professional services outfit. And he wants to be conscious that everyone is taking in all this information, and it's not just going to be, as we've said, death by PowerPoint. It's not just going to be a meeting that everyone is sitting there and not really getting anything from. So he really wants to make this a productive meeting.
Sure. Those 3 bullet points on this slide here. So team highlights, objectives, and upcoming plans and strategies. This is what Bob wants to get out of his financial year kickoff, and we're going to be explaining how he can actually do that from the use of polling within that. So speaking of, we have a polling question for everyone now. So if you open up the Teams icon, the Vevox icon in Teams, sorry, you'll be able to interact with this polling question. If you can't see that for whatever reason, joining instructions are on the top right-hand side of this screen. But Bob is starting his FY22 company kickoff. This event is being run on Microsoft Teams, so it's an online virtual event. People are starting to join the meeting. And so what do you think the best way is for Bob to kick off with and for Bob to start with? Is it 1, go straight into the presentation and introduce the first presenter? 2, talk about business updates and how well the company has done the last year? Or 3, give everyone a warm welcome verbally and introduce an icebreaker poll? Perfect. So we've got 21 responses out of 28. I'll open that for a few more seconds and then I'll close that off now. Let's see what everyone thinks. Perfect. So a little bit different to what I saw earlier when we were doing a little practice run through, but here we go. So everyone's gone for third one on there. So although all 3 of these options on here are fairly good ways to start off your meeting, we like to say that at Vevox, giving everyone a warm welcome verbally and introducing an icebreaker poll to start off your meetings or your events is always ideal. And this is how Bob's going to benefit the most from this. So, Lewis, why are icebreaker openings so important and vital for the start of your meeting or your event?
Just to reiterate your points, really, the point about an icebreaker question is that hook more than anything else. It's getting your audience interested right off the bat. They understand what's going to be asked of them. They understand what they need to do, how to participate in Vevox or in the tool that you're using. And it's also really important for you to kind of cover off any of those technical demons and glitches before you get to an important part of your session. Not saying that an icebreaker is not important, but it's designed specifically to prevent those things from happening. The last thing you want is to do half an hour of talking, presenting, and then get to your vital polling question, and then the people can't connect to the poll that you're trying to ask them. They can't connect to the system. They don't know how to do it. They haven't got the app downloaded, whatever it might be. By doing all of that at the very start of your session, the rest of your session is going to go nice and smoothly and go off without a hitch.
Sure. And I think it looks really great visually as well. And we always practice what we preach here. So, I mean, we ran the example right at the start of today. We ran an icebreaker polling question. It got everyone involved, everyone excited right from the get-go. And we got a bit of an example here on the next slide of how we use it at our quarterly comms meetings at Vevox. So, Enya, can you explain a little bit about what's going on this slide here?
Yeah, so ahead of our own FY22 kickoff, we put this question out to everyone at the company. We wanted people to think about their answers. You know, you don't just want the obvious ones to come to mind of summer party and Christmas party, as was obviously the case though. But we wanted there to be a lot more smaller moments throughout the year that people wanted to celebrate that maybe had been left behind. And it's lovely to look back at this image now and think what a great year we did have last year. And whilst we do remember the summer party, the new office and the Christmas party, there's also a lot of great things on that list that we maybe some had forgotten about. So that was really nice.
I think your name's on there as well, Enya, for when you first started.
I spot it there, yeah.
There we go. I thought
The year
that's
today,
what
isn't it,
you're
Enya?
going for.
It is a year
today?
today, yes.
There we go. Vevox anniversary. Perfect day for it. Right, let's move on. So that's definitely something that Bob should be doing at the start of his meeting and for his financial kickoff, and something else that he should be doing throughout. So moving on swiftly from icebreaker word clouds is to checking understanding, reaffirming key learnings, and doing important business updates with polling. So why is this so important, Lewis?
So it's all about information retention here. What we're talking about here is Bob has explained what's going to happen. There's lots of information that's being shared around the merger, the new targets, previous quarters earnings, all these other things that are being discussed in the kickoff. And with the sizable amount of information that's being shared, it's important that that information is retained. So running correct answer questions, running quiz questions, even just running a poll, even if you forget to add a correct answer, you're still making sure that your audience are listening to what's being said, what's being given to them during that session. And for you personally, you get to understand, is what you're saying going in? Are they actually taking in what it is that you're learning, what you're teaching, sorry. It means that you get rid of, hopefully, fingers crossed, death by PowerPoint. You're not just droning on, you are still increasing that engagement. And it's just another tool in your arsenal to help break that attentiveness curve so that people are still paying attention to your session.
Sure, really key points on the page there as well. And I wanted to highlight one other thing, which is the pyramid of learning. So this was from Jerome Bruner, the process of learning, and lots of stats on this slide here. But the main kind of ones to pick up on are when you are just lecturing to people, when you are just teaching them verbally, the knowledge retention rate is 5% on there. So really low. How much it dramatically improves just by practicing by doing is 75%. So that's a 70% increase for practicing by doing, i.e. polling questions, live polling questions during your session to make it a lot more interactive. And you're going to see that knowledge retention from your audience, your employees, from those important business updates or anything that you're trying to get across to them dramatically go up. And we've got a bit of an example here for you with a live polling question right now. So going to run that for you. We had a slide at the start of today. Hopefully this looks a bit familiar. So how much do ineffective meetings cost UK businesses every year? So what was that magic number that Ed mentioned right at the start of today? Was it 58 million, 580 million, or 58 billion? So everyone could put their votes in, and we will close it off in just a moment's time. Perfect. I'll close it off now and we'll see what we've got here. So perfect. So majority of you have got that correct. It is in fact 58 billion. It was $58 billion wasted in unproductive meetings every year in the UK. And just from this example here, I like to think that this information is going to be retained from you guys following today now than just having it on the slide at the start, turning it into an interactive polling question. Your knowledge retention is going to go up a lot, and hopefully that number is going to stick in your mind a lot more than it would have done if we were just presenting that information to you on a slide, right? Moving on swiftly, so that's knowledge retention and things like that. We're now moving on to the ideas board and ideas generation that we spoke about a little bit in the previous webinar. So can we reflect and touch upon that again, Lewis, if that's okay?
Sure, yeah. So in the last webinar, we looked at using the Q&A board as an ideas generator. So not your typical Q&A board usage. The idea is that Bob in his meeting was looking to get ideas from his team about how they can make the merger more successful, how they can sort of help with employee morale when it comes to what they need to do to make sure that everybody's happy, and all these other suggestions and ideas. In that particular scenario, our end game was to make sure that people were just liking their favorite suggestions and then ultimately put those favorited suggestions into practice. What we're going to do is take that one step further, and we're going to have a real example on the screen in a moment. And what we're going to do is ask you to put in some suggestions, and then we will take the top liked suggestions on the Q&A board and actually turn that into a poll. So in Bob's scenario, he would take those top suggested ideas, the most liked options on that screen, and then create a poll off the back of it as a multiple choice poll or an XY plot poll for you to vote as an audience which one of those, say, 5 is the most important. So
Sure.
let's demo that, shall we, LT?
Let's go ahead and do that now. So what you just saw on the screen was how Bob could use it in a real life scenario, and let's go ahead and do that now for just to give you guys a bit of a teaser as to how you could use this. So I've got an empty fridge at the moment. I haven't got any food in the house. I need some ideas as to what food I'm going to be ordering for takeout later this evening. So if everyone can go to the Vevox Q&A board and put in their favorite foods or what you think I should eat for tonight. And then once some ideas are starting to generate, there we go. We can see there's a few already in there. Parmesan, tapas, curry. Right, so a load of different things in there. If everyone can like their top 3 ideas on that board, and then I'm going to turn this into an interactive polling question and then choose my favorite and the most efficient from those top ideas. And you'll see exactly what I mean in just a moment's time. So keep those ideas coming. Once you've got a few in there, just like your top 3, and then I'm going to turn that into an interactive polling question now. Italian's up there, so I'm going to put Italian as one of the choices. What else have we got?
Just to confirm while you're doing that, LT, those questions that were up there, we will put back onto the Q&A board once we've done this little exercise. So your questions that you sent in haven't been ignored. They will get put straight back on, so don't worry.
Yep, exactly that. Yeah, we're just using this for an example for the moment's time. Those questions will come back, no worries at all. So we've got Italian, right? I'm getting that one as well. Korean barbecue, because that's right up my street. So Korean barbecue, Italian, and Thai. So right, we've just got those in there now. And now those have been turned into an interactive live poll. So that's what I was doing in the background. I was programming a XY plot polling question. And now what I want to know is from those 3 choices, what is the most has the lowest calories and what is the lowest cost on there. So if you guys can all vote on your on Vevox now, number 10 would be the highest calories, what you think it is anyway, and then the cost would be number 10 for the highest cost. So essentially from these 3 choices, I want to find out what's the least calorific and what has the lowest cost from these 3 foods on here. So if everyone can get voting and make sure you press that send button as well once you voted. So we've got 6, 7, 8 responses in here now. If everyone can just go in there, what do you think I should be eating tonight? I want to go for a low calorie, low cost meal, and make sure you press that send button as once you've got your opinion in there.
It's going to be pretty difficult to have low calorie, low cost with the 3 options that you've got there.
Yes, it's not going to be good, is it? I'm hoping there's going to be one on there. Looks like we've got a clear winner so far, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in about 5 seconds time. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and close that now. Right, let's see what we've got. So a bit of a spread on there, and it looks like we have the highest calories is Italian on there, but it is the lowest cost. So I'm probably going to go for the thing with the lowest calories, but it's still got quite a high cost on there. So just from this kind of example, I can see really differentiate between the 2 and which would be the best option here. So anything in this box would be the sweet spot essentially. And unfortunately, we haven't hit that today. So no low calorie, low cost food for me tonight. But I'm either going to go for the Thai or this one here, the Italian potentially.
Something really interesting with this particular poll type is you can also click on one of those dots and extrapolate the responses. So if you were to click on Italian, we can kind of see the overall spread of how people have actually voted. And then we have our average score in the middle, which is always quite nice.
Sure, that's a really widespread as well. This one's probably more in the same range. So Italian can be quite varied food, I would imagine. So I'm probably going to go for the Thai there. It's going to be a little bit on the pricey side, but it's the least calorific there that I found out from everyone. So just a really nice kind of simple example as to how you can use this, and I'm hoping that's given everyone a bit of an idea as to how you can make rapid decision making and strategic decision making from the XY plot polling question. So that was just a little bit of fun, but hopefully you can see from that idea as to how you can actually use this in your meetings and events to really narrow down a project idea or something like that from your audience. Perfect. Moving on swiftly. So we are looking at capturing commitments and capturing plan of actions following your meeting. So let's talk a little bit about this one as well, Lewis.
Sure. Just in the interest of time, I'll go through this one quite quickly because we want to wrap up within the next sort of minute or so we can address some of those good questions.
Sure.
But capturing commitments, really, it's all about giving some actions from your session. So one of the points in the stats earlier was that 25% of these poor meetings were because there was no sort of follow like from the session. And the idea here is that you can, by having actions and commitments from the session, you hold yourself to account, you hold your colleagues to account, the colleagues hold you to account based on what you said you're going to do. And then when you have the next meeting, you can then say, right, since that meeting, we have done X, Y, and Z. We've actually used this ourselves. It was an idea that Lewis came up with in our customer success meetings as a team about what we should do each week and how we should kind of commit to doing something, whether that was to help the wider team goal, whether it's an individual project that we were working on, but that's what we were going to commit to. And on the next slide, there's an example of how you could do that. So we have the open text poll here. So what is it that we're going to commit to following this meeting? What are we going to do? It's a made up example. We don't want to put our own on there and give away the secrets of what goes on behind the scenes. But this is just a made up example. And you could also use a word cloud style question if it was just what we're going to focus on. Or you could use the multiple choice. You might have a select few projects that you want to know what people are going to be working on and ask people to just vote on the multiple choice. But it's a great way of adding that value to your session afterwards.
Sure, really powerful, and that would stop those unproductive meetings and get that cost down for anyone that wants to use that. So that's a really cool idea, and hope that can help you guys in the future. Moving on swiftly to in the moment feedback evaluation. So this is another type of polling, really powerful for quick in the moment feedback. Enya, can you talk a little bit about this one, please?
Yeah, so we're going to go more into surveys next month in our final webinar. But this is a really good sort of pulse check kind of feedback. At the very end of your session, you spend 30 seconds, you run 3 questions. We're about to do it now for you, and you'll see that I think we've got an 8-second countdown on the slides, and that you just get instantaneous feedback at the end of your session rather than, waiting around for people to fill in a survey.
Indeed, so quick, so easy for people to fill out this right at the end of the meeting. So in 30 seconds, I'm going to ask you guys to rate the quality of information provided in today's webinar. So if you guys can all just vote on that now quickly, you got 4 seconds, 3 seconds. We've got 20 responses in there, so it's still data, right? And that's all captured on our back end, so you're not going to see any of this. Rate the presentation skills from today's webinar. Don't be too harsh on us, please, guys.
We've tried our best.
Perfect. Got some responses and that data has been captured. And finally, rate Vevox as a tool overall. So 6 seconds, click on that star rating on your phone or however you're logged in. And perfect. It's taken us about 30 seconds. And I've just captured some really useful data for us to go and analyze post session. Perfect. So that is pretty much it, guys. That is the all of those different kind of ways and examples that you can use Vevox. So I'm hoping that's opened your eyes a little bit as to all the different varieties and variations as to how you can use polling to maximize insights. End results would be engaged employees throughout the meeting. Information has been retained and acknowledged throughout the meeting. So from those reaffirming learnings, meaningful data has been captured for future analysis to look at afterwards. And overall, it's been a fun meeting or event for everyone. Perfect. We've got a couple of plugs in here just before we go to the Q&A, and that's to join our upcoming webinars. So we've got episode 4 next month with Enya hosting, wrapping up interpreting data and session takeaways. Make sure you join that, 7th of July, 3 p.m. And also the Zero to Hero. If you're new to Vevox and you want to learn how to use us within a really short space of time, 15 minutes, that's every Tuesday, 3 p.m. UK time. So you can sign up to both of those webinars on our website in the webinars section. Perfect. Thank you very much for joining us today, guys. We're going to jump over to the Q&A board because I'm sure we've got loads and loads of really cool questions on there, and we've only got a couple of minutes until the end. So let's try and get through as many as we can on here. Top rated question. Can you explain how to integrate into Teams? Yep, really, really easy how to integrate into Teams. Like the explanation is basically you just need to set up the meeting in your Teams calendar. And then from there, you need to invite at least one person to it. So just so you can add an application. And then in the top right-hand corner of your Teams meeting, you'll have a little plus icon. And then you just type in Vevox and you can add it directly in there. So that needs to be an approved application for if you're in an institution or organization, it needs to be approved. And we got some really useful videos on our help site just of how to do that, where Lewis actually, LT1 actually explained how to do that. So did I explain that correctly, LT? That's pretty much everything, isn't it?
Yeah, not to. I mean, there's sort of a little bit more to it in terms of where buttons are and things, but I think what's probably best if we send out the link that we've got on our help site about how to do that. It's got the video, the guide, step by step. It's been added into the Q&A by Enya already, which is awesome.
It's in the Q&A. Perfect.
But because somebody else has asked about, are we going to share the slides? So absolutely we will. And when we send out that post-event email with the slides on, we'll make sure we include the links to everything in there as well.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Yeah, and thanks for sending that link out, Enya. It should be on the most recent in the Q&A board, and you can have a look on there to just exactly how to do it. Will you go on, LT,
similar answer here. Similar answer to this one. We'll send out the link just because we haven't got time to explain it in depth here. But we'll make sure we include that link in the email too.
Perfect. Let's move on to this next one then. Are there step-by-step instructions on how to logistically do this XY plot in the meeting? Yeah. So on our help site as well, if you just go on to the polling section of the help site, Vevox help site, you'll be able to see what the XY plot is and how you can actually do it and run it step by step. I've actually made a bit of a help video as to how to do this. I believe it's on the help site. So if I can, if you just go onto there, there'll be loads of information on that. But if you need a bit more of an explanation, send in your just email us at support@vevox.com, and one of the team will be able to pick that up with you and give you some nice useful links and a bit of a step-by-step guide of how to do that. Next one on here, how did you get the QR code to show up over the slide that you were presenting? So is that in regards to the present view that we are showing now? All you have to do is click on the QR code. Simple as that. It just this present view screen here that you can see is completely interactive. So you can either click the QR code, or if you want to do it a little bit more fancy and you don't want to see your mouse on screen, you've actually got the thumbnail view of the present view in your top right hand corner of your dashboard, and that's interactive too. So you can actually click on that and make it large without putting your mouse on screen if you want to be a bit more fancy. Perfect.
That follows on to the next question. Can the same person share PowerPoint slides and run Vevox at the same time? So as Lewis alluded to, yes, you can.
Jump the gun a little bit there.
If you've got 2 monitors, you can use your taskbar and just switch between the apps on your taskbar at the bottom of your monitors. If you don't have 2 monitors, then you can press like Windows and Tab and switch between the 2 applications. As Lewis is doing here, you can just switch between the 2. But yeah, you can absolutely have Vevox slides, so your PowerPoint slides up and run Vevox at exactly the same time. That being said, I would recommend, and from my experience, I think we'd all agree, share the session with a colleague, have a backup, because even if you felt really comfortable, you might get to a point where you think, actually, do you know what, I'm a bit flummoxed with what to do here, and somebody can step in and help you. Or, you know, when we had our webinar last week, there was a power cut. You have somebody there that can run it for you instead if you have any problems. So always share it with somebody anyway.
It's worth mentioning that I'm monitoring the Q&A today. So whilst Lewis is a fantastic presenter and has been flicking between the screens and running all the polls. I've been monitoring the Q&A, so even the pros do it. So feel free.
Perfect. So let's go ahead on to this next one. So we find that people have issues with their phones timing out and they have to rescan the QR code. Any suggestions? And that also makes the Teams option more appealing. Do you want to take this one, LT?
Yes. So you shouldn't actually have to rescan the QR code at all. The first suggestion that I would have is and I actually noticed it earlier today myself, if you have an iPhone in particular, you might open up your app and it will say could not join. And if you do that, actually at the bottom of your app screen, I'm just going to quickly hold my phone up to the camera so that you can see, there's an option to join your most recent session. So you just tap on most recent and it will take you back into the meeting. Now, what's more common, rather than having to do that, is actually if you just refresh your page, if you just, again, on an iPhone, scroll down, swipe down, it will refresh your web browser and it will just reload that page. The reason that this happens is because to save power, and Android does it too, to save power, when your phone goes to sleep, when it locks, it severs any of your data connections to try and save power and save data on your phone. So when you open up your phone back up, it has to reconnect. And occasionally, if your Wi-Fi is a little bit slow or there's a problem when it reconnects, you have to do that kind of manual process. That being said, the Teams add-in that we've got, that doesn't happen. You know, you're always connected. Anytime you click on the Vevox icon, it will just reload the app for you and get you straight back in. So that doesn't happen there. But my suggestion would be to not worry about the QR code and tell people to just refresh the page. It makes it so much easier.
Yeah. Sure. And I think potentially something else that you could do as well is if you know a polling question is coming, or you know you're going to be using Vevox in a few slides time from now, 2 or 3, or in a couple of minutes time from now, you kind of preempt people, pre-warn them that it's coming. Have those joining instructions on every slide building up to the Vevox question, so people are ready for it and they're not stumped as soon as the question comes and they look at their phone and they're logged out. Just building up and preempting would be my advice for that one. That was that one there, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you using the PowerPoint add-in and using the Teams add-in? The questions show up in both. Yep. So good question. And yeah, we're doing exactly that. So we're using the PowerPoint add-in for some polling questions. We were using the Vevox Present view for some polling questions and Q&A. And we've also integrated it into Teams. So you can do all three at the same time. It's not either or. There is possible to do them all at the same time. Isn't that right, guys?
Absolutely. And just to clarify, the Teams add-in is just the participant view. So what Lewis is doing on PowerPoint is exactly if Teams wasn't part of the equation, if you were just joining using your phone, what he's doing in PowerPoint would show up in your phone the same way if he was in the dashboard, it would show up on your phone. The Teams add-in is just a sort of remade version of the participant app for your phone. So you can't create polls from that view. It's just for the participants there.
Sure. Really good point there as well. Right. I think we've only got one more.
There's a few more down below.
I see. I'll do some scrolling. Thanks, Enya. So if I have a PowerPoint slide deck and Vevox polls, how do I run this smoothly in Teams? Anyone want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll go. It's what we've said already. So Alt Tab is your friend when switching between screens if you want to do it in Vevox and PowerPoint. And as we said, the link to how to integrate Teams into how to integrate Vevox into Teams is on the Q&A board, and we will send it out to you at the end of this session as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Enya. Right. So we'll do some scrolling here. Will these slides be shared? Yeah, I guess we can get the slides across to the guys, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
The recording will be sent to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we send the link to the YouTube recording, we'll send the slides and we'll send the links as promised to the various help documents as well.
Perfect. Yeah, really good one to bear in mind. That's going to be on recording. Will be on YouTube, and we can and you can see all the slides on there anyway. Download. I think that's just a comment.
I think it's
should we download the Vevox?
Yeah, I think it's an adjustment.
I see.
Personally, I actually don't bother downloading it. I know I work for Vevox, but I don't use the native app. This is me personally. I always scan the QR code and use my web browser. It's quicker. I find it quicker anyway. I don't have to type in any numbers, and it's exactly the same experience as if I was to use the native app on my phone itself. I still have it on my phone because I obviously need to check it for bugs and do other testing on it. But when I actually use it, I only ever use the web version and scan the QR code.
See, I'm the opposite. I only ever use the app. I will always use the app.
So I guess what the answer is then is personal preference.
Up to you.
Yeah. And again, this is the Vevox app. This is just for the participants view. So if your account holders, your hosts, you'll be able to do that stuff through the applications. That's one to bear in mind for sure. Perfect. I'll just go for this one. I couldn't select more than 2 stars on the quickfire feedback. That's an odd one. So it's 1 to 5 stars. So it's a bit of a strange one that you could only select up to 2 stars.
The only thing I can think is perhaps the question had closed already by the time they were clicking. But I don't know.
Maybe they voted on the 2 stars by accident and then didn't change the voting on there. But
what I'd say is, I think rather than trying to speculate on a reason here, if the person that sent that question is still online, could you please get in contact with us, and then we can have a chat about what you saw, what happened, and we can actually get to the bottom of it properly.
I think that's probably the best thing to do. It'd be good to explore that a bit further. So thanks, LT. Finally on here, we've got this question that's just popped in. How are you doing this question review right now? Is it automatic or did you pull them into a slide? I've not used Q&A much. So really good question. And this is the Vevox present view. So if I give you a little bit of a sneak peek into the background of what's going on right now, I can move this across here. And this is what I'm doing in the background. And this is the Vevox present view is what we're using to control all of the questions, and also the polling questions come on the Vevox present view when they're live. So if I just go into present full screen, which I've done on my second monitor, you'll be able to control everything from here. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'm just using the Vevox present view, which is a completely interactive screen to manage this Q&A board. And I do recommend doing this if you haven't used it before. It's just a really nice way to visually present your questions at the end of your meeting. Perfect. I think that's it, everyone. So thanks for staying on. If you did for the extra 11 minutes, apologies, we've run slightly over, but wanted to get all those questions addressed for you guys, and really hope that was a useful insight into polling. And if you have any kind of further questions at all, you know where we are. And like that YouTube channel, because it's a really useful one. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you on the next one.